Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of The Articulate Fly, and we're back with another Casting Angles with Mac Brown. Mac, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Marvin?
As always, I'm just trying to stay out of trouble, Mac Brown.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think so, and it's interesting, you just finished up an advanced casting school. You want to kind of tell folks a little bit about how that went, and then we've got a topic that I kind of came up with while I was doing some casting practice this weekend.
Yeah, it went really good. The first day goes over a lot of just how loops work and what the goals, so they can go away, to look at what they're trying to, basically learning to diagnose and learn how to tweak and change what they're trying to do as far as the loop shapes that they're going. And we talked a lot about that and go over the fundamentals of basic movement. And a lot of that first half of the first day was basically covering that. And that's similar to what, you and I were talking earlier about from what you did practicing the other day. So that might be a good topic, just addressing movement.
Yeah. And so, for folks, the idea that came to me, I was doing some casting practice this weekend and had the cones out and, had cones at, 30, 45, 60, 90 feet. And, was playing around, really, working on kind of the full arm casting style that we did our class on earlier. It was maybe March, and trying to kind of think through, obviously at short distances, you need a shorter stroke. You don't need as much power, and kind of trying to work through kind of the mechanics of, how far can you go with the wrist? How far can you go with the arm? And how far can you go kind of with the shoulder? Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like then the use of how do we coordinate all three of those to complement one another. The most efficiency would be the best word to say. And that way, when they all fire and at the right time period, and using the whole arm, of course, and it's a whole lot easier. Just pick it up and, in a very relaxed fashion, just pick it up, stop it at the right place, have the right rate of movement, and then let it go. And that right there alone is so efficient that it goes further than most people ever cast, just doing it like super slow motion. And then just imagine if you start to put a little bit of effort with it, then it just gets better. So, yeah, it's a lot of this. When you first said that earlier today, I thought about it when I was on a hike, Marvin, and like when it all started, like in about 1858, they figured all this out in the first year. So this isn't like some new rocket science in 2024. You and I talking. In England, a lot of the chalkstone strings were so small that a lot of them did cast with just all wrist, and then they started to use, tricep and bicep and just pivoting from the elbow, like keep the good book under your elbow at your side. And then they learned real quick that about 1860 with George Selwyn Marriott, he basically trained the world in all the tournament scenes for even America. About the full arm casting style. So I would say all this has been around since 1860. The top casters out there have all done it since 1860 the same way. So they figured out full arm was a lot more efficient. So the elbow could move up and down with the full arm and still yield what you want without the con of saying now you want to go 40 feet or 60 feet, that it can keep on going in range and go further and further, plus it can go short. And I guess the nemesis to that would be, say, look at somebody that casts a lot with a lot of wrist and keeps the arm very stationary, and they'll find out real quick that they can go 20, 30 feet, pivoting off of a single joint in their body, and then it seems a struggle to go 40. And so the cons become much greater at a quicker rate, once they isolate a small range of motion from the wrist,
Yeah, and so it's almost like it's backwards from the way most of us kind of learn to cast, right? And so, I think we were talking before we started recording, you're really talking about full arm, that, what it's going to do is you're going to actually, at close distances, you can really just use the arm and regulate, how much the elbow moves, and you don't even really need kind of the, call it whatever you want to, the squeeze of the rod at the end or pulling with your pinky, because you don't need that power until you need to cast at a greater distance.
That's right. And so, so if the elbow rises and falls, with the full arm casting, say we're casting accuracy, say 20, 30 feet, or a fish rises and you just want to pick it up and reposition it and throw it right in the ramp where that fish rose, the elbow might just rise and fall for that range. Of course, a shorter stroke, going to have a shorter pause, going to have a shorter arc. All those things are going to take place. Shorter with everything because we're going short, right? So the pause is going to be less time. So the elbow might rise and fall 2 inches, but the elbow still moved up and down 2 inches. Then you take that same example and you say goes from 30 to 50. Pause is going to be a little longer. The elbow is going to move 4 to 5 inches now up and down. The arc's going to be a little bit bigger because the elbow's moving more up and down. So I mean, that's kind of how it works. It's just like, and then let's say now you want to go to 7. Same thing. Now the elbow might come all the way up to the Statue of Liberty, pose like holding the torch in the harbor. Then when you come all the way back down, the elbow comes all the way back to the side before you pull the pinky. And that's the most efficient way to launch something then at a bigger distance. So does that kind of make sense? So the elbow is a variable. The elbow moving up and down with this full arm casting is all variable. I mean, it's still going up. It's just a whole lot easier. I mean, I've seen a lot of this out here the last couple of weeks. I mean, you'll see people and the elbow's kind of sitting in against the side and it's just all bicep, tricep. And if you think about it, just do it slow motion for those listening. Just grab a rod, move it with your elbow pinned against your side, and you'll see that the whole tip is just drawing this big circular radius. And then just imagine what kind of loop's that going to look like. It's going to be a big circular fly leg. And that's exactly the non-efficiency that we don't want to have in our casting. So I think it's kind of self-intuitive once you see that it's coming around a big arc, and chances are you're going to have a big radius, a rainbow kind of loop going back and forth. And of course, over here in Bryson for the last few weeks, most of what I've seen is that. But then again, does it get the job done? Because a lot of it's, short repositioning of an indicator, a bobber being thrown over the side of the boat 10 feet. So does it matter? Probably not. So I guess we also got to clarify that with what we're talking about is more about saying, what if we want to come down through here like what we did last night and fish dries and wets at 50, 60 foot of range? Then that's where it's going to matter. So if we're talking about just bobber lobble something, then really all this stuff is a moot point, I guess is what I'm saying. If you're throwing 10 feet with an indicator and a big bobber, then really doesn't matter how you do it because it's not that far, right?
Yeah, but it'll also matter, right, if you're throwing, streamers at distance, right, and trying to cover water. But, one of the interesting things, before we started recording, Mac, was we were also talking about the importance of tempo.
Oh, yeah. Everybody's got too fast a tempo. Why is that, Marvin? Why does everybody want to be in such a hurry? I mean, about every lesson I've ever given, everybody's in a hurry. It's kind of like golf. If you see a golfer and when they're taking a new lesson, brand new golfer, they want to take the club back real fast. What are we going to gain by moving the club and the tempo really fast pace? That's the biggest mistake in golf as well. It's the biggest mistake in casting. Everybody's off to a race. And one thing that's a very good drill, if people get out and practice in the yard at all, with their casting, is to really be conscious of trying to learn to be slow, like to try to really slow it down where the tempo can be relaxed. And I think it would shock a lot of the listeners to see how slow they can go and achieve really, really a pretty good distance, with moving really slow.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It reminds me of a casting kind of tip I got from Mark Huber. I think it was actually at the Virginia Fly Fishing and Wine Festival. And we just had maybe 15 or 20 minutes at the hotel one day, kind of before or after the show. And, his suggestion to deal with the power issue was to keep casting and get a fixed length of line, right? So you're not adjusting for that. And then to just basically keep casting until your loop collapses, right? And then if you back up just a little bit, that's all the energy you need, right? Because to your point, a lot of people cast too fast, and it sounds like you're listening to Zorro, right, with a sword, and that's all that's all wasted energy, right?
That's what people don't realize. They think going fast means going far. And I think a lot of that's also from, we'll just have to say that even though this is on full arm casting, is that when you have a loop of line that's unrolling, it's one of the few things in life that people will ever do that actually accelerate. So if they like, baseball and guns and golf and all these things, those are all projectile motion things to where they actually decelerate. So to hit a golf ball further, what do you got to do? You got to swing faster. But in a cast, it's not really that way as much because of the way the loop works. There's a lot of mechanics and physics of how a loop unrolls. And in other words, a way to say it, though, to make it really easily understood is the fly is always going faster. As soon as you start the cast, the fly accelerates. It's going faster all throughout the cast until the line straightens in the front. And because of that fact, you can go way, way slower than what most people think when they take this up. And once they get to that point where they understand that it can go that slow, they're probably well on their way at becoming fairly elite caster at that point. But why not start there at the beginning instead of going too fast a tempo? It'd make life a lot easier for people.
Yeah, and I think, another kind of aha moment, right, is when you realize that, closing that 3 or 4 inch gap between the, the bottom of your wrist and the butt of your fly rod, and you do that, and, just look at it sideways and see how much tip movement you get from that. And that just happens in an instant of a second, and you don't need to power it. You literally just need to squeeze it. And, if you do the math, that's a phenomenal amount of tip travel, but it also equates to a tremendous amount of acceleration.
That's right. Yeah, that's what launches gets the fly leg and everything, all the system moving to form the loop. And we had some really good folks like this weekend that were just really, really smooth and didn't really rush. I mean, they were already well on their way at being really good at advanced control. And it was actually really refreshing to see the amount of smoothness that the folks had. And I didn't really have to go around and tell people slow down at all this weekend. So that was kind of a nice thing. For sure, because the tempo was already there, and part of it was from golf. One of the ladies that was here was LPGA golfer for 27 years, and of course, smoothability is and tempo and all that was already very well mastered in the game of golf for her. So she kind of already had that, which was nice.
Yeah, and so you're all done with schools right until the fall?
Yeah, the next casting school we'll do is in September. Then we'll just got bunch of little mini weekend type of things for the next couple of months still with there's a wet fly school, streamer school. We have little weekend courses that specify, and they kind of go in depth to just those topics. It's not like 50 ways to mend a line or anything like that. It's just all about wet fly game, and the streamer weekend's all about rates of retrieval and how do we fish streamers productively with the different line choices. And they cover all of those kind of topics. And so, yeah, pretty much done until the one in September.
Yeah. But obviously, great opportunity if you can come up to Bryson City with your family, check out one of those classes. And then, of course, I know because I talked to you earlier this week, you're on the Sticks guiding folks too.
Oh, yeah. It's starting to be that time of year where people are thinking about being on the water. It's finally greened up. And I think tomorrow they're talking about hitting mid-80s, which will be the first warm day we've had like that kind of one, for this year. We've been in the low 70s quite a bit. So that'll be a nice temp. And I think it's supposed to be really nice outlook the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. And so if folks wanted to get more information on any of those offerings, where should they go, Mac Brown?
Oh, MacBrownFlyFish.com. That's the easiest. It has all those classes and the menu item up at the top, and it'll say specialty classes, and it'll describe the dates for all the different things. That's probably the best place to find it.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, I'll let you get back to seeing if any bugs are going to come off on Deep Creek tonight. And, folks, you owe it to yourself to get out there and catch a few. Tight lines, everybody. Tight lines, Mac.
Tight lines, Marvin.